The hardest part of recreating Jurassic Park in Jurassic World Evolution 2 is getting this fence layout right and making it work on this map. It's like making the star fit through the square, and we've been taught in kindergarten that it don't work like that. Well, I'm here to tell you, yes it does. I have found the solution for easily recreating the perimeter fences in just 2 tries, and other tips for rebuilding Jurassic Park, so of course I want to share those with you. Hello everyone!
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Not yet. If you've clicked on this video, you are probably interested in recreating Jurassic Park for yourself in Jurassic World Evolution 2. Or you already have and you ran into some issues. Frontier definitely didn't make it easy on us by making this the Nublar 1993 map. It is both a blessing and a curse. Yay, we have the waterfall, but it's over here. And instead of giving us one big area, they split it into 2. There is a way though.
Show you.
For starters, you're going to need a lot of references, most of which of course just screenshots from the movie itself. I'm showing you the screenshots that I used for my recreation, so you don't have to rewatch the movie yourself to get those screenshots. Although, why wouldn't you want to? I mean, any excuse to watch this movie, am I right? The movie doesn't really show where things are in relation to each other though, so for that I looked up a map. The official map is way too lacking in actual detail. Specifically, we need the fence layout, so I used a fan-made map for that. There are multiple different maps out there, most showing pretty much the exact same layout, which corresponds with the official map and what we see in the movie. The one I'm using is one by Evo the Nerd, which is not me, even though I am Evo, and I am a nerd. One inconsistency between some of these maps is the location of the helipad arrival point. Of course, we know that the game map has the waterfall over here, which dictates that the arrival point also has to be there. So we have to be flexible with that when comparing it to our map reference. The one I'm using has the arrival point right here, and it works relatively well to have it on the right side, as you will see. Park builders, beware, we have to make some compromises, especially if you are not using mods like I am not. To fit the star in the square, so to speak, we have to shrink the star, obviously, but we want to keep it as big as possible. And I've made it fit by orienting the map like this. We have the waterfall to the right, a little higher than on the reference, but that's the compromise we have to make. And we have this little pocket over here to fit our visitor center and raptor paddock into. On the map, the raptor paddock is quite a bit west of the visitor center, but that doesn't fit on the in-game map, so that is another compromise. And to be frank, according to the movie itself, the distance is really short between the visitor center and the raptor paddock, and even when we look at the official map, the velociraptors are actually northeast of the visitor center, which is exactly where we will be putting them in this recreation. So it's a compromise on this specific map, but technically it does still perfectly fit. You might think orienting the map differently works out better, but I disagree. As you can see, the map reference stays the same size, so there is no advantage to orienting it this way. The disadvantage is that the waterfall is at the top, which is definitely the wrong location for it. Now, how did I recreate this fence layout? If you've been with the channel for a long time, you might remember that I also recreated Jurassic Park in Jurassic World Evolution 1. And if you've seen that speed build, you know that it was a process of a lot of trial and error. Obviously, not everyone has the patience for that, and it's not even a surefire way to get it right in the end anyway. I had to improve my technique, and I did that with the help of Photoshop. Before you click away, you don't need Photoshop. There is a free online tool you can use, which I will show you. I'm just saying, I used Photoshop, and I'm not saying I faked it, I'm saying I used Photoshop as a tool to get my in-game fences just right. The steps are like this. Step 1, make this composite image of 2 screenshots to get this entire section of the map in view. Step 2, lay the map reference over top and position it the way you need it. I cut out the map shape, but you can also just turn down the opacity of the image and overlay it that way. Later on in the video, I will show you how all of this works on that online tool that I mentioned. Again, you don't need Photoshop. Step 3, build the outer fence in the game. This is made a lot easier if you're just recreating this image that you created. In-game, you have the map borders as reference points. It's a little bit like drawing using a grid, but instead of drawing the stem of the apple in the upper right corner of this particular square, you draw the tip of this fence curve about a third of the way in this section, and you let this fence curve follow the border of the map here, and you touch the map border here and here. These are kind of like anchor points which help you get the proportions right, and then it just becomes easier to connect everything in the correct way. It's just a lot easier to draw a shape using this technique. But that is not the full trick, because even when you use this technique, you might still have made some mistake. So then, the next steps. Step 4, you take 2 screenshots again of what you've made, and you make a new composite image in a new layer of the same file. Match the sizing and orientation with the original composite image of your blank in-game map. So everything is overlaid nicely, and it's exactly the same as your starting point. Only this time with the fences you created. Step 5, lay the map reference on top simply by moving that layer onto the top of the pile. You don't actually want to mess with the sizing or the orientation of your map reference. You need to keep that exactly the same. Now, moving this layer on top of what you've created allows you to see where your fence deviates from the reference. So this was my first attempt, and as you can see, some spots are definitely not right. And we're going to use that feedback to make corrections in step 6. Go back into the game and correct it. For example, after comparing what I had made to the actual reference, I knew that I had to narrow the bottom section and bring some curves in. Step 7, check your work again. So make another composite image in the same file, lay the reference layer on top again, and for this one I turned down the opacity of the reference so I could see more clearly. And now you see that it is almost perfect, and that is in just 2 tries. So all I did was draw the first perimeter fence and then made a couple of these corrections. Now if you want, you can definitely keep repeating these steps until it is absolutely perfect, but I personally decided this is good enough, I'm happy with this. But now we only have the outer perimeter, we still need the inner fences. How do we get those angles right? Well, by imagining or actually drawing some lines. For example, this fence at the Dilophosaurus exhibit, if you were to extend it all the way down, it would connect at this point right here. So you go into the game, you connect a fence at the top, and then you move the cursor all the way down and put it on that exact spot across the map, and then you click a couple of times. The fence is built out of frame at the exact right angle. You do the same thing with the other straight fences. Here are some lines that I have drawn to connect them, just so I knew both points where I needed to connect. And then I just clicked a couple of times. Obviously, you don't place the fence all the way across the map, just enough to cover the length of where the fence should actually be. After that, I freehanded the interior fencing, and I'll admit that it's not perfect. If you do want to make it absolutely perfect, just go back to taking screenshots and comparing them with the map reference so you get accurate feedback on which sections need to be longer or wider or whatever. So you basically repeat what we did with the outer fencing. You go back into your free online tool or Photoshop if you have it, and you keep comparing the two with the opacity and whatnot so you can make that absolutely perfect. Now, of course, not everyone has Photoshop, I acknowledge that, but like I said, you can use free online photo editing tools for this, like pixlr.com. Same as in Photoshop, you can create layers, enlarge and angle photographs, and change the opacity, which is really all you need for this technique. If you're playing on console, it's a little more annoying because you have to switch between working on your console and working on your laptop, for example. But if you know how to share screenshots from your console, then you can do this too. I guess you could even do this on your phone, although of course the smaller screen is going to make it that much more challenging. You might be thinking right now, this sounds complicated. This sounds like it takes a lot of time. But really, No and no. It might be a lot of information to receive at once, but if you follow it step by step, it is super easy. And the entire process took me less than 30 minutes. So building and checking it in Photoshop from start to finish took me just 30 minutes. And honestly, I had fun with it, but that might just be me. I think it's the most challenging part to recreating Jurassic Park, so it deserves this level of time and attention. The rest of recreating Jurassic Park is just about recreating screenshots and really paying attention to the details that you can spot in those screenshots so you can add those to your parks for much needed realism. For example, I know a lot of people have recreated Jurassic Park, but I've personally never seen anybody add this little wooden deck that is right in front of the visitor center. We only see it once when the guests arrive at the visitor center, when they arrive in the Jeep. It's a passing shot, but there's a little semicircular deck which extends a little bit further on one side that sort of curves out into the water. There's some birds sitting on there, we have some palm trees, and it looks like we have one of those little concrete lights over there as well. That sort of detail is great to add to your Jurassic Park recreation. So it's really just a matter of looking closely at what the movie gives you and then recreating that to the best of your abilities with the limitations of the game. If you want more tips on how I recreated Jurassic Park in Jurassic World Evolution 2, then subscribe and stay tuned because I'll also do a tour video and give some extra pointers on what to look out for. Of course, you can also check out the speed build from last week. Subscribe if you're awesome, which I know you are. If you've made it this far, you are definitely awesome, and you should be part of the OG 100K. I want to thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.